Did you know that more than 80% of the ocean remains unexplored? That leaves plenty of room for lots of oceanic mysteries to uncover, from unsolved cases to discoveries. So today we'll be taking a look at some ocean mysteries. Caribbean ocean whistle. Many eerie sounds originate underwater. A lot of times these sounds induce fear and paranoia. The dark, endless ocean can make one feel stranded and alone. But when we add a mysterious noise, one that seems to have no origin, it is no wonder we become uneasy. Thankfully, even though this first noise comes from a tropical paradise, if it makes its way to your ears, you will remain unbothered. Originated in the Caribbean Ocean, there is a whistle that is both too deep for humans to hear, yet so strong it can be detected in space. While researching fluctuations in ocean mass, scientists from the University of Liverpool discovered anomalies in their measurements. A series of instruments were being used to measure pressure along the ocean's floor. These instruments sent back data suggesting consistent pressure throughout the seafloor in the tropics, except for one instrument. This particular instrument was located in the Caribbean Ocean. After running computer models and analyzing data, the scientists discovered what is called a Rossby wave in the ocean's basin. As the ocean is flanked by South America, Central America, and the Caribbean islands, it creates a semi-enclosed basin, which is the perfect landmass for this wave to make its slow journey across the seafloor. For 120 days, a wave makes its way west across the ocean basin. Before disappearing out into the ocean, another wave reappears on the west side of the basin, ready to make the 120-day journey again. As this wave interacts with the seafloor, a whistle-like sound is emitted. This sound is made in much the same way as a whistle we make through our lips. The vibrations in the air from our lips cause the high-pitched whistle we easily recognize. This ocean floor whistle, dubbed the Rossby whistle, is so low humans cannot hear it. To put it in perspective, it is 28 octaves lower than the lowest note on a piano. This a flat note is easily detected from space because the oscillation caused by the wave disrupts Earth's gravity field just enough. While this whistle is naturally occurring and harmless to humans, scientists are excited by what we can learn from it. Since the Rossby wave enters the Gulf Stream once it leaves the Caribbean basin, scientists believe studying this whistle could give insights into Earth's entire climate system. Furthermore, since the oscillation that causes the whistle lasts 120 days, scientists also think they could predict sea level changes along the South American coast and better plan for storms and floods in that area. It is simply amazing that a single oscillation can give us so much information about our planet. It goes to show that even after millennia of study, Earth still has her secrets. The Gyeongsang. When you find an oil tanker sailing through a huge body of water, you would think that there is an entire crew manning it. This is not the case for the Gyeongsang. In 2006, an Australian Coast Watch airplane spotted this 80-meter oil tanker floating in the Gulf of Carpentaria in Queensland, inoperable and extensively stripped. Knowing this area is notorious for illegal activities, Australian Coast Guard immediately sent a team to inspect the ship. Ready to apprehend possible violators of international seafaring laws, the Coast Guard was surprised to find out that no one was aboard. There were no signs of anyone being on the ship recently, nor did they find any evidence of illegal activity. The Gyeongsang is believed to have been floating around international waters for a long time on its own, without a crew nor a captain to steer it in a certain direction. As the Australian authorities tried to discover what happened to this ghost ship and how it ended up in the territory, they took a closer look at the cargo. Surprisingly, it had nothing on it except a huge pile of rice. They believed that the ship was used to provide supplies for shipping vessels, but they found no evidence that could confirm that. The authorities were able to retrieve some documents stating that the name of the ship is the Gyeongsang. But this is not indicated on the exterior of the ship. Its name and other identifying marks were all completely painted over. Why would an unmanned and unidentified ship be floating around uncharted waters? Why did it contain an immense amount of rice? Who owns it and where did it come from? The Gyeongsang was found to have a broken tow rope. Considering that the ship was badly stripped down, the broken tow rope could mean that it might have been on its way to a scrapyard, but did not make it. Instead, it drifted southwards and ended up in Queensland. However, this theory does not explain the large quantity of rice aboard and why its identifying features were all covered up. All that is certain about this ghost ship is that it had been sailing for an exceptionally long time. As to where it came from, what happened to it, and where it was headed to, this will forever be a mystery. The fate of the Jiangsang was decided when no owner claimed it. Not long after it was discovered earlier in 2006, the Australian government determined that it is best to scuttle the ghost ship. Just like what usually happens with abandoned ships, to prevent it from being a navigational hazard, the Jiangsang was disposed of on the morning of April 21, 2006. It was towed to deep waters and was deliberately sunk. The Aurora Islands. In 1762, a Spanish merchant ship named Aurora was traveling from Lima to Cadiz when the ship's crew saw 3 strange islands. The same islands were once again spotted by the same ship in 1774. Then in 1794, a Spanish survey ship was sent to determine the exact location of these islands. Named as the Aurora Islands, these islands were seen by various ships until 1856. Since then, the islands seem to have been lost in the ocean. The reported location of the Aurora Islands was halfway between South Georgia and the Falkland Islands. A number of different explanations about the persistent reports of the Aurora Island sightings during the late 19th century and the first half of the 18th century have been given by researchers. Some researchers have given the theory that they were in most probability large icebergs that melted over time. However, this explanation has been widely dismissed as icebergs are quite easy to identify, and it is nearly impossible to mistake an iceberg for an island. A more widely believed explanation about the mysterious disappearance of the Aurora Islands is that these were actual islands that sank into the ocean during the 18th century. The proponents of this theory present the various other volcanic islands that sank into the ocean as evidence. However, no direct evidence has been found that could either approve or disprove this theory. The mysterious disappearance of the Aurora Islands is still a metaphor debate amongst researchers, and it remains a mind-boggling oceanic mystery that cannot be explained. Solomon Island Giants. Over the years, there have been many stories of giants. These tales are said to have been told by North American Indians, and they speak of giant men who once lived and roamed in the lands of their forefathers. Over the last 100 years, stories about giants have come from the Solomon Islands. Researchers who spent time on the island were told stories from the native people, and they detailed mysterious encounters with giant men who would occasionally with the nearby people. The Solomon Islands are located in the South Pacific. A man named Marius is a researcher who was told about the tales of giants while on the island. After asking around, the locals began to open up to him and tell him stories of the giants. Incredibly, the natives spoke of giant humanoids that stood over 10 feet tall, while others shared stories of giants that reached even greater heights. The descriptions of the giants share a common theme. They are believed to have long reddish hair, protruding double eyebrows, bulging red eyeballs, flat noses, and wide, gaping mouths. These stories have even reached newspapers. One local was interviewed and they told the story of a giant that left a footprint in a nearby construction site. One native told the story of a local woman named Mango who had a run-in with these giants. The story goes that she had been taken by these mysterious humanoids and taken to an unknown location. A search party was sent out, but they weren't able to find any trace of her. The case eventually went cold and the locals soon moved on with their lives. However, several years later, the woman turned up alive. After trying to get information about what happened, though, the locals quickly realized that she wasn't the same person after being taken. As of today, the mystery giants of the Solomon Islands remain a mystery. Flight 19. The disappearance of 5 U.S. Navy bombers is amongst the most mysterious events to ever take place over the Bermuda Triangle. On December 5, 1945 at 2:10 p.m., 5 Avenger bomber airplanes of the United States Navy took off from Fort Lauderdale in Florida. They were on a training mission that was given the code name Flight 19. Commander Charles Taylor was leading the mission. It was a routine training mission, and the planes taking part in the mission were amongst the most reliable bombers at the time. 14 crew members were a part of this training exercise. According to the plans were to practice bombing at different areas over the sea. They were supposed to cover a triangular route and return to the base after completing the mission. It was a sunny day with clear skies. The planes were expected to complete the training mission without any hiccups, just like many other training missions completed before. However, at 3:30 p.m., the control tower received a message from Commander Charles Taylor. He told the control tower about his compass malfunctioning. The control tower immediately guided the plane in the right direction. Then at 3:45 p.m., control tower received another message from Taylor, this time in a worried tone. He told control tower that they could not see the land and it seemed that they were off course. Constantly complaining of compass malfunction, the Flight 19 planes flew for a couple of hours before losing contact with the control tower. They could not be seen anywhere on radar. The U.S. Navy immediately sent out 2 other planes to track the location of Flight 19. However, one of the planes that went out looking for Flight 19 planes also lost contact with control tower and could not be seen on radar. Over the next few days, the Navy sent out more than 300 boats and aircrafts in order to find the wreckages of the missing planes. However, they could neither find the lost planes nor the bodies of Commander Taylor and his men. The Navy sent many search missions to the triangular area between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. This was the planned flight path of the missing planes, and this is where the planes were lost. However, they could not find any clue about the planes or the missing personnel. The term Bermuda Triangle emerged from this incident. But what do you make of these ocean mysteries? Whether you think they are a topic of elaborate theories or a subject we are touching closer and closer on each year, UFO sightings have been a point of discussion for decades. From people thinking aliens are coming to investigate Earth to pose a threat to people thinking UFOs are just planes or lights, there are a wide range of opinions. U.S. Soldier's Eyewitness Account. Our next story is a true eyewitness account from a soldier in the U.S. military. Names and other sensitive information have not been disclosed in the following account. I served in Iraq and I'd like to get my story out there. I don't want to say where I was deployed as I don't want to give too much information away. But one strange thing that did happen while I was there was the multiple UFOs that were witnessed by myself and others who were there. At the time, I never opened up and told people about this. It wasn't something I wanted people knowing. And after all, people who talk about these topics tend to get a label put on them. Regardless, these crafts would appear in the sky at around dusk. Sometimes they would be disc-shaped, while other times they would be in the shape of an orb. The size of them varied, but I'd say that on average they were around 25 to 40 feet in length. Me and others thought it may have been linked to the enemy. After all, it wasn't uncommon to see projectiles in the sky. But these things were different. They seemed to be under intelligent control, being able to go from one place to another in a matter of seconds. On one particular night, one of these UFOs came into view around 1,000 meters from where we were. You could see it because it was pulsating, not in the way that an airplane or helicopter gives off but rather it looked like the whole object was actually the light. It's tough to explain, but these things seemed to have been made of light. On another night, one of these UFOs flew close to the ground, almost as if inspecting the area. After this, it shot up to the sky, leaving a hole in the nearby cloud. To this day, me and my friends who witnessed these crafts have no idea what they were. Aurora, Texas UFO incident. It was almost dawn on April 17, 1897, when inhabitants of a rural American town saw a single alien spacecraft lose control over the skies of Texas. A young boy saw an airship trailing smoke as it headed north toward the town of Aurora, slowing and speeding as it tried to regain control over its trajectory. It sailed over the public square, reaching the northern part of the town where it clipped the edge of a windmill at speed, then veering into the path of the town's water tower where, upon contact, blew into a number of pieces, large and small. In a terrific explosion, scattering debris over several acres of ground and awakening many of the town's residents. The residents that awoke went to investigate the source of their early wake-up call. What they found would astound and stupefy the townspeople. Having read about numerous mystery airships in national newspapers recently, including an abduction attempt, they wondered if this was something not only extraterrestrial but also nefarious in nature. On locating the ship's sole occupant, although the pilot was dead and disfigured from the crash, they soon realized that he was clearly not an inhabitant of this world. Furthermore, strange markings in the manner of hieroglyphic characters were seen on the internal control panel. Terrified of the unknown, the townspeople hurriedly buried that the incident would disappear from the town's history. But that would not be the end of this. Some decades later, an investigative reporter wanted to find out once and for all the facts behind this extraterrestrial cover-up. The investigator began with trying to locate the remains of the spacecraft itself. One Aurora resident interviewed claimed the whole thing was a fabrication, maintaining there had never been a windmill for the craft to collide with, in that there was no windmill to be seen. However, further investigations revealed the remains of a windmill base were found. Was this Aurora resident still continuing the cover-up all these years after? More was added to the mystery, as the nearby site of the old windmill was a deep well. A sweep of the well would reveal metals in the water itself, some elements such as aluminium and silver, but others that were unidentifiable in this planet's periodic table. Could this water well be where the spacecraft's parts had been dumped back in 1897? The presence of metals surprised the well's owner. However, he disclosed that having started using the well, he began to feel pains in his joints and soon diagnosed with early-onset arthritis that could be associated with contaminated water. With the location of the spacecraft possibly found, the investigator moved to locate the extraterrestrial pilot. He went to the Aurora Cemetery, and ground-penetrating radar and photos from prior visits brought to light an unmarked grave in an area near other burials from the 1890s. He discovered a grave marker and headstone that seemed to show a spacecraft of some sort, as well as faint readings from his metal detector again. This was surely the conclusive evidence he was looking for. After putting the pieces together, the investigator returned to the town, looking to ask for permission from the perform an exhumation and to conduct a more major operation of retrieving the spacecraft's pieces from the well. Not only did the Cemetery Association refuse his request, but upon returning to the site to take photos, not only had the grave marker mysteriously disappeared, but the metal readings now showed nothing. Returning to the well, the investigator had a feeling he knew what he'd find. The metal detector now also didn't pick up anything either. The UFO landing in Aurora, 2007 Alderney UFO sighting in 2007, two experienced airline pilots on separate flights reported seeing the same mysterious object hovering off the coast of Alderney. Captain Ray Boyer was flying a plane of 5 passengers from Southampton to Alderney when he noticed a bright light ahead of him. At first, he assumed the light was from a reflection of the sun, but when the light remained completely stationary, he began to grow cautious. Taking out a pair of binoculars to observe the light in more detail, he saw it was cigar-shaped with a green area, pointed ends, and was emitting light downward. Boyer would later state in his 9 years of flying he had never seen anything like it. Even more strangely, behind this light, Boyer saw a second identical light. Conscious of the safety of his passengers, Boyer continued with the flight. After landing, Boyer asked the passengers if any of them had seen anything unusual, and a number of them reported spotting the same stationary and luminous light in the sky. Some were so convinced by what they had seen they agreed to submit a report to go public with their sighting. When Boyer relayed what he had seen to air traffic control, he was told a similar report had come in from Blue Island pilot Captain Patterson. Patterson's flight had been further away from the light than Boyer's, but he too had reported a yellow and beige light that posited some type of atmospheric phenomenon. The sightings did not end there, though. BBC Radio Guernsey reported that a couple had been on a walk that afternoon and returned to their hotel, inquiring about the 2 bright yellow lights in the sky above Alderney. Even more concrete proof came when it was shown that Jersey's airport's primary low-level radar had registered the presence of two objects in the area. Boyer and Patterson were both convinced they had seen UFOs. Skeptics have argued against them and instead proposed the two lights were either a military aircraft, a sundog, or Earth lights. Firstly, for some the description of the two lights could have been secret military aircrafts in the local airspace. The presence of such aircrafts would be extremely dangerous and illegal, and notably the Ministry of Defense and French military both issued statements to say they had no part to play in any potential military exercise. Secondly, astronomers have put forward the theory that the two lights were caused by sundog effects. Sundogs usually appear close to the sun and tend to be colored. While the description of the sundogs fits the profile of the lights Boyer and Patterson spotted, what is problematic is that the two lights were reported at an altitude of around 2,000 feet, much further below the sun than sundogs would be. The third and final theory put forward was that the lights were the result of Earth lights. Sunlight reflected from the Earth's surface. Earth lights appear as luminous and colored objects, but once again, while they fit the profile of Boyer and Patterson's sighting, their location does not. Earth lights do not occur over water, and the lights Boyer and Patterson reported manifested themselves above the sea. July 11, 1991, UFO Mexico. Over the years, there have been many reported UFO sightings. Most of them can be easily dismissed because of the fact that they were claimed to have been seen by only one or two or a handful of people, and because of no reliable photographic evidence. However, there are some UFO sightings that have been seen by thousands of people at a time and cannot be dismissed easily. A similar UFO sighting took place in Mexico. On July 11, 1991, people of Mexico City had prepared to see a total solar eclipse. They had gathered in large numbers at various parks and open areas to see the amazing spectacle of nature. Many people had their video cameras ready to capture the eclipse, but they had no idea they would be seeing so much more than the solar eclipse. During the eclipse, people reported seeing a large metallic disc flying in the sky. Many people were able to make videos of the UFO, and it was even broadcasted on the news. The UFO was spotted by people in other Mexican cities as well. Later, when the investigations were carried out, it was discovered that different videos made at various places had all captured the same UFO. However, no official explanation came out from the government, and no one can say for sure what this mysterious UFO was. Some people believe that the United States had something to do with the UFO, and there is a strong possibility that it was an undisclosed U.S. aircraft. However, in 2004, a new theory about the 1991 Mexican UFO emerged and became viral on the internet. It claimed that the United States was at war with the alien UFOs, and most of the confrontation was taking place over the continent of Antarctica. According to the report, the UFOs seen over Mexico City in 1991 was a part of that larger war going on between the United States and the aliens. However, as you would expect, there is no evidence supporting such a big claim. Remarkably, the 1991 UFO sighting over Mexico City was just the first UFO sighting in a series of sightings over the next couple of decades. Since the first sighting, Mexico City has become a hub for UFO activity. Many people believe that the government of Mexico has much more evidence about the 1991 sighting and the subsequent sightings, but the government is trying to cover the UFO incidents for unknown reasons. Clyde Tombaugh and UFOs. Clyde Tombaugh was an American astronomer who discovered Pluto. It was the first object to be discovered in the Kuiper Belt. Clyde Tombaugh also discovered a number of asteroids. During the huge amount of time he spent searching for distant planets and space objects, he came across a number of UFOs. During his life, he emphasized the scientific community to carry out research on the unidentified flying objects. The Wikipedia page on Clyde Tombaugh, other than giving a lot of information about his work related to discovery of Pluto and different asteroids, also discusses his interests in UFOs. In 1949, Clyde Tombaugh saw several UFOs near Las Cruces in New Mexico. He described seeing up to 8 rectangular lights for about 3 seconds. A couple of years later, he reported seeing another UFO. At that time, he was working at an observatory in White Sands. According to Tombaugh, during his work he came across 3 different objects that could not be explained with any of the known phenomenon. He also hinted that these mysterious objects could have an extraterrestrial origin. Clyde Tombaugh was a firm believer of extraterrestrial life, and according to a quote associated to him, he believed that there could be hundreds of thousands of habitable worlds in our galaxy alone. He believed that the races on those worlds might have been able to bridge the space between different stars by utilizing the tremendous amounts of power at their disposal. Although most of Clyde Tombaugh's work is publicly known, there are surely some secrets associated to the work of such high-level astronomers that are kept secret by the government. And it would not be a surprising thing if much of that work kept secret belongs to the unidentified flying objects. Being an officer in this day and age isn't easy. They have to be ready for the unexpected. Call-outs, though, don't always go the way they think they will. And in some cases, officers have been left wanting answers for what they just encountered. People posted some questions online, asking officers to detail the strangest call-outs they responded to. One person said the following: "My dad was a cop, and I've never forgotten this story he told me. My dad was always someone who was straight to the point, was never one to make up stories, and always told the truth. He said that the station got a call and was asked to investigate an old home in the woods, saying that a woman was very shaken as she thought that someone had broken in. My dad, though, said it didn't bother him, and these sorts of calls often came in. He told the woman to stay upstairs and hold the door shut until they arrived. Him and a buddy went to investigate their house, and said that once there she told them that her husband had been woken up from noises coming from downstairs. At this point, though, the woman didn't tell them where the husband was. My dad was checking out the property, and said that a tall figure walked past him in a room to his left. The room had no lights on, but he just assumed that it was the husband. He called out to the person but didn't get a response, not thinking a lot of it as it was late at night when the call-out was made. He continued looking through the downstairs of the house, but didn't find anything. As he walked towards his officer and the woman, though, he noticed the husband walking down the stairs, and my dad said this immediately gave him chills. He quickly turned around to his partner and said that someone else was in the house and that they were in the room behind them. As they ran in the room, no one was there. My dad was sure of what he had seen and said he could clearly see the outline of a human walk past him. He said the figure was around 6 foot and that it looked like it had a black robe on, noting that it reminded him of a dressing robe. Both my dad and the officer checked the house thoroughly but didn't find anything. My dad told me that he insisted that they inspected the house several times over, as he was sure that he saw something, but each search turned up nothing. He said that the owners were shaken up even more than before, and said this isn't the first time that they've heard strange noises throughout the house. He said that nothing like this has ever happened since, and that he has no idea what it was he saw. When I've asked my dad about it in the past, he says he doesn't really like talking about it. I can tell that it affected him, as he's someone who doesn't bite into the paranormal, and he said that he spent countless hours trying to figure out what it was he saw. My dad is retired now, and has said that he can't explain what he encountered that night. I've told a few people about this encounter, and they seem to be of the opinion that my dad encountered a shadow person, saying that the details match up with other similar encounters. Another officer detailed his encounter, though this case is more sad than spooky. He said the following: "Our department had received a call from a neighbor saying that a lady lived a few doors down and that she was practicing black magic. They said that she has ties to dark things and that we should be careful when we go there. The original phone call was made due to a noise complaint, with their neighbors saying that they could hear her screaming and chanting in a strange language. I was the officer that was sent down there to investigate, and I've never really taken much notice of the paranormal. I wouldn't call myself a believer or a non-believer. I'm an open-minded kind of person, so I turned up at this house and it does look creepy from the outside. The lights were switched off and I could see her face behind the curtain. I knocked on the door and didn't really know what to expect. When the door opened, though, this elderly woman slowly looked through the crack of the door. I explained the situation to her, and that there had been a noise complaint. She seemed confused by this and offered me in for a drink. I entered and thought that perhaps by talking to her I could get to the bottom of what was going on. We get chatting and everything seems fine. She then re-offers me a drink and goes into the kitchen to make it. Everything seems okay inside the house. It was a little run down, but looked like any household an old woman had been living in. She comes in and starts laughing, and then starts talking to someone else in the room. The problem being that it was just me and her. I asked her who she was talking to and if everything was all right. She told me that it's nothing, and that she talks to herself because her husband had passed away, and that her family doesn't visit her anymore. She said that it helps her get through the days. I definitely wasn't expecting this, and it even choked me up a little. We talked for the next hour and she seemed fine. The only thing I could make out was that she was lonely, but this was the start of an ongoing friendship, and I often went round and visited. I really enjoyed the time I spent with her and think that she just created these people in order to make herself feel less lonely. Little did I know that when approaching her house I would learn one of the most important lessons in my life. Always reach out to family and visit, even if it's quickly. All this woman needed was someone to talk to." End quote. So what do you make of these stories? Even the most experienced officers have, on occasion, been truly baffled by the weird, or in some cases, altogether disturbing things they've experienced. Sadly, thousands of people are reported missing every single day. While the majority of missing person cases get resolved, there's still a large number of people that are never seen again. David Lawrence Stone was a 29-year-old stock market analyst from La Jolla, California. It is of note that he sought spiritual guidance through the New Age movement, a range of beliefs focusing on the mind, body, and spirit of its followers. This knowledge was a pointer that gave authorities more information, when they later discovered his tracks through a desert in New Mexico and traces of related clues and hints that he may have intentionally left behind for them to find. Stone was known for having anger and control issues, and these problems became worse just 3 days before Halloween of 1988. After a significant outburst and loss of control, Stone told his family and friends that he needed some time away. The morning of that Halloween he drove off, not telling his close loved ones where exactly he was going. What happened next was determined by investigations and a report by Sheriff Bill Cavalier, investigating officer in the case. It was said that Stone walked into a desert about 145 miles east of Tucson, Arizona, from where he just kept walking. He walked so far that he got from Arizona to New Mexico, where a farmer discovered him and approached him, surprised at seeing a walking tourist in such a far and rural area of New Mexico. When asked about the encounter later, the farmer told investigators that Stone told him he was looking for what he called the beast. Other locals and residents also noticed Stone, reporting that he had been walking alone, muttering to himself and acting extremely strange. Around the 5th of November, Stone's car was found abandoned along an empty stretch of the New Mexico Highway 80, south of Road Forks, New Mexico. Stone's family believed him to be on what is referred to by New Age members as a vision quest, a journey taken for one's self-discovery and understanding of him or herself. This belief was reiterated by many clues discovered later, thought to have been left behind deliberately by Stone. Symbols like that of pyramids and strange numbers were related to certain New Age beliefs. Searchers found a pyramid of rocks surrounded by a triangle besides a watch belonging to Stone and 2 quarters. The Vedic numbers, which are digits used often by stock market analysts, were found written in the sand. Notably, there was a mistake in the numbers. Stone had written 18 instead of 21, which some people thought hinted towards his jersey numbers from when he had played football in college. Although it was a mere coincidence that Stone disappeared on the day of Halloween, it still adds to the mystery and fear around this case. To this day, no one knows why he was acting happened. The case was unresolved until 4 years later in February of 1992, when it was discovered that Stone had passed away. His skeletal remains were recovered in a desert near Granite Gap, New Mexico, the same area where several clues were found years before. His identity was confirmed by medical records, and there was no medical evidence of foul play in his passing. To this day, no one knows when, how, or why Stone passed away. That part of this unfortunate case still remains a mystery. Devil's Den disappearance. Devil's Den State Park, despite its name, is a picturesque nature preserve in northwest Arkansas's Ozark Mountains. As beautiful as this rocky wilderness may be, it was also the site of one of America's strangest national park happenings, a disappearance that was baffling, if not altogether disturbing. In the summer of 1946, 8-year-old Catherine Van Ulst was staying in a cabin with her family in Devil's Den State Park, deep in the Arkansas wilderness. It was her first holiday, and the family were celebrating her parents' 25th wedding anniversary. News reports from the time of the disappearance state that the child had got lost when returning to the family cabin from a nearby creek. The family quickly realized Catherine had disappeared, and a search party led by Catherine's father was immediately assembled. After 3 days of searching, the local sheriff ordered Catherine's father to leave the party to rest. By now, everyone feared that she'd be dead. 3 days lost and alone in the wilderness would have taken a huge physical toll on most people, let alone a vulnerable young girl. On the 6th day of the search, Catherine was found. Despite the family's relief, Catherine's discovery was where the mystery really began. The girl had been discovered in a cave some 30 miles from her family's camp, on ground 600 feet higher than their cabin, begging the question, how did an 8-year-old girl travel 30 miles in 6 days without food, water, or appropriate clothing? One of the members of the search party, University of Arkansas student Porter Chadwick, explained that when Catherine was found, she uttered the words, "Here I am," calmly, in response to one of the rescuers' shouts. Wearing nothing but a swimsuit, she had no markings on her to suggest she had been harmed and was thankful for being rescued. She later recounted that she had spent the first night simply laying in the grass before sleeping in caves, eating wild berries and drinking water from pools. To this day, we don't know exactly what happened to Catherine Van Ulst or how she managed to travel so far. The events that occurred over those 6 days in 1946 were anything but natural. Cindy Song Hyung-yong Cindy Song was a senior college student at Pennsylvania State University when she went missing. On Halloween of 2001, she attended a costume party with 2 of her friends dressed as a bunny. The 3 stayed at the party until 2 a.m., stopping at a friend's house to play video games before going home. At 4 a.m., Cindy's friends dropped her off at her apartment. She was never seen again after that. Upon conducting a search of her apartment, it was confirmed that there was no sign of forced entry or struggle. Her school backpack and mobile phone were all found in the apartment. Her purse containing credit cards and her driver's license, however, was missing. Police believed Song was still wearing her costume when she left the apartment because it too was not found. A phone analysis was conducted revealing no inbound or outbound calls, messages or emails, adding to the confusion and lack of evidence leading to any suspects. Tickets to a concert and a printed receipt for a computer were both found in her apartment, providing evidence that she was making future plans that did not involve running away or disappearing. According to her friends and family, there was no evidence that Song was depressed, unhappy, or intending to run away. She was always considered upbeat, friendly, and outgoing, including on the night that she vanished. The surrounding wooded areas were also searched but revealed nothing linked to the case. It is thought that while on her way to a 24-hour supermarket, Song was abducted either on the way or at the location. Others believe that she may have left her apartment with someone close to her that she trusted and her life was taken. Adding to the mystery and confusion, a woman of a similar description was later seen being forced into a car by a man in Philadelphia 200 miles away from her apartment. It was reported that she was screaming and resisting, crying for help, but finding none. The man remains a possible suspect, although police do not know who he is. The man has still not been found. A few more suspects were discovered about 2 years later in 2003, including Hugo Sielensky. A co-defendant in his case told police that he and an accomplice, Michael Kukowski, had abducted and taken the life of a woman from Pennsylvania State College that matched Song's description, although nothing was ever confirmed. The report led authorities to 5 bodies, which were all DNA tested for identification. None of them, however, were found to be Song. Even recently, in 2014, 7 more bodies were discovered on Zelensky's property. Again, authorities hoped that perhaps Song's body would be found and the case would be solved. However, her body was not one of those, and has still never been found. This case remains unsolved, as no new evidence has surfaced regarding what may have happened to Song after that Halloween night. Shakid Baisiev. The second on our list is a married man by the name of Shakid Baisiev. Baisiev was born in 1939 and lived on the outskirts of Grozny, Chechnya. He was married with 5 children. Shakid Baisiev was just your regular civilian and worked as an auto mechanic in a local company. However, it is his mysterious disappearance in 2002 which is interesting. It all started after a fire incident had happened in the neighborhood of Grozny. This fire was started by protesters against the Amman paramilitary police forces. Unfortunately, Baisiev was on his way to work that day and the troops picked him up and detained him. You would have expected Baisiev to be given the chance to call his lawyer, but at that time, Russia was a very hostile place to be with a lot of military brutalities. This was due to conflict and war that had broken out in 1991. So the country was somewhat lawless. So without a proper trial, the Russian troops began to violate Baisev's rights by beating him up. They were making fun of his misery and some of the troops even filmed the detention. As if that were not bad enough, the troops would later sell the videotape to his wife for $1,000. His wife was pleading for the release of her husband, but what she got was a video showing Baisev lying on the ground and being kicked by a soldier before he was taken away. For some reason, those troops seemed to be having the time of their lives, torturing Baisev. We do not know exactly what happened to Baisiev in their custody, but we do know that they gave a sketched map to his wife which supposedly shows where her husband was buried. When she got there, she didn't find her husband, but she found a piece of cloth that looked like it was torn out of her husband's coat. Now you might be wondering why his wife hadn't involved the police, but she did, and it appears they could not do much to challenge the Russian troops. After the disappearance of her husband, she immediately gave the video footage of his detention to the authorities. However, the Russian authorities failed to carry out an effective investigation despite having the footage as evidence. For several years, Baisev's perpetrators went free with no one being held accountable for his disappearance. When his wife discovered that she might never find justice in Russia, she took the case to the European Court of Human Rights for help. Russia was sued to court in a case termed Baisev versus Russia. On April 5, 2007, the woman was able to defeat the world's largest country and brought justice for her husband. The European Court ruled that Baisev's detention was an illegal act and they had demanded that he must be presumed dead. Until that time, Baisev was only declared missing even though it has been 6 years since he was last seen. Unfortunately, the Russian troops depicted in the video were not identified by the official investigation, even though their faces could clearly be seen. But for the unfortunate woman, the European Court held the Russian government responsible for the death of Mr. Baisev and ordered them to pay £50,000 to his enraged wife as compensation for moral damages. No amount of money is enough to bring back Mr. Baisev, but his wife did get some justice 7 years after the death of her husband. Because at the time of the ruling, there were 200 similar cases of disappearance pending before the European Court. It would later be reported that an estimated 5,000 people disappeared in Chechnya since the start of the war. Alexander Kushin, if you've never heard of Alexander Kushin, he was a very young, ambitious oceanographer and Arctic explorer in the late 1880s to early 90s. At just 17 years of age, Alexander fell in love with the sea and became a seaman on a Norwegian ship. His exposure to Norwegians made him passionate about the culture. He mastered their language in 1 year and would later go on to write short Norwegian to Russian dictionaries for his compatriots. Kushin went for numerous expeditions, especially one to the South Pole. As an oceanographer and navigator, he made numerous observations in the southern Atlantic, but Kushin's biggest exploration was yet to come. In 1911, he earned his biggest trophy when he got engaged to a slow Paulson, the girl of his dreams. They were deeply in love with each other and had planned to get married. At the end of one of their successful summer field expeditions, some top members of Kushin's ship returned to Russia for vacation. Captain Kushin and 10 others of his crew members got bored one day and decided to explore the Pacific Ocean by the Northern Sea route. The young captain and his crew had failed in consulting with the authorities in St. Petersburg. This would later end up being an awful decision because their ship was too small for the kind of expedition they had embarked on. Unfortunately, that would be the last expedition they would embark on, because their ship would later disappear without a trace. The ship was sent in search of the crew in 1914 to 1915, but to no avail. It wasn't until 1937 that relics of the ship would be found. Captain Kusin was a very bright young man, but sadly died at the age of 25, leaving behind his 18-year-old fiancée, who later died in 1987. But what do you make of these mysteries and disappearances? Early fossil records show that sharks have been around for over 450 million years, meaning they've outlived the dinosaurs, and that makes them some of Earth's most ancient creatures. Sharks are underappreciated for their positive impacts on marine environments, and they are also massively misunderstood. There's over 400 shark species, and although we've all heard stories of them coming into contact with humans, very rarely do they attack. In fact, research has shown us the main reason they do this is because they misidentify us as their prey. From below, humans look like seals, and this is the reason why sharks like the great white approach us. Although humans and sharks often come into contact, there's a lot we don't know about them, and this has caused barrages to tag them. It helps us understand their swimming patterns, areas they visit the most, and why they visit certain regions. Back in 2014, news broke that a 9-foot great white shark had been eaten by a massive giant shark. The story was featured on various websites, and various people speculated about what creature could have eaten a 9-foot great white shark. Although researchers have said the mystery is solved, and the likely candidate was a large great white shark, very rarely do great white sharks eat each other whole. They've been observed biting each other during mating and sometimes will attack if they're hungry, but never has one been observed eating another one whole. According to scientists, they said that the 9-foot great white had been eaten by an unknown shark. Researchers were carrying our tests and had tagged the healthy great white in order to keep an eye on its movements. For months later, though, they were surprised when they detected that the tracker had washed up on a beach in Australia. The researchers quickly looked at the device's data to see if it could give them any indication as to what happened. The data showed them that there was a big temperature rise that went from 48 degrees to 78 degrees, and shortly after there was a sudden 2,000-foot drop. Most researchers agreed that something much larger had taken out the gray wine, and that this explained the rapid temperatures that were recorded, saying that it's likely the filmmaker Dave Riggs said this when hearing of the story. When Osfus told about the data that came back from the tag that was on the shark, I was absolutely blown away. The question that not only came to my mind but everyone's mind who was involved was, what did that? It was obviously eaten. Who's gonna eat a shark that big? What could take out a knife for a great white? End quote. At first it was theorized that an orca took out the great white. Back in 2017, great white shark sightings in and around South Africa dramatically decreased. The researchers said a total of 5 great whites were found washed up on the shore of Africa, each of them missing their livers. The evidence of large teeth marks clearly pointed to the local orcas. While port and starboard were the only present orcas in the bay, researchers have been given word of another orca in the area, resulting in continued drops in sightings. This behavior might point towards a different ecotype of orca, one that is primarily a shark eater. Reasons for this behavioral adaptation could stem from water temperature changes, as well as overfishing. Strangely though, these orcas will only observe going for the shark's liver, and not eating any other part of the shark. So although orcas can take down great whites, it's thought that in the case of the 9-foot shark another creature was responsible. Although scientists have not been able to come to a conclusive answer and find evidence of the exact creature responsible for what happened, they have theorized that another much larger great white shark was responsible for what happened, saying that the shark in question could have been over 16 feet long and weighed in the region of 2 tons. Not much evidence could be shown to back up this theory, though scientists did say the area in which the track increased in temperature is known for having great white sharks. There's some who have suggested that a much larger shark could be to blame. There's not much evidence for this mystery shark, though people have reported it's over 30 foot long and that it hunts along the South African coast, although many scientists have called out the claims saying that they're made up. Fishermen, along with others who spend large amounts of time on the ocean, have claimed that giant great white sharks do exist. Researchers have discovered that female great white sharks are larger in size than their males, with the males having a length of 3.4 to 4.7 meters and an average weight of 522 to 770 kilograms, while the larger females have a length ranging from 4.6 to 4.9 meters and weighing between 680 to 1,100 kilograms. According to J.E. Randall, the largest great white shark reliably measured was found in Edge Point, Western Australia. This was in 1987 and is said to have measured at least 6 meters. Around a decade later, in 1988, the Canadian Shark Research Centre captured and verified a female great white shark, and this was in Albertan Prince Edward Island. It measured 6.1 meters. Furthermore, a great white captured off the coast of Malta in 1987 is said to have measured an estimated 7.1 meters by Gianna Bella. Photographic evidence of the shark dubbed Malta was thoroughly examined and was found to confirm this estimation, even suggesting it was larger than first thought. This suggests that great whites can grow to be at least 7 meters, a vast jump from the previously known size of 4.96 meters. Alternatively, the largest unconfirmed sighting of the great white has to be the case of the shark that was found in Canada, and this was during the 1930s. Records from the time indicate that the shark appeared to measure at least 11.3 meters and weighed well over 3,000 kilograms. Scientists, though, claim these measurements are flawed. So what do you make of the story of the 9-foot great wind? What do you think it was eaten by? The river lizards, cryptid known in the cryptozoological circuit as the river lizards. These creatures seem eerily similar in design to their small theropod genus of dinosaurs, of which has fossils commonly found near ancient riverbanks and dense jungle regions all around the world. These cryptid river lizards have claimed to have been sighted nearly anywhere where there exist secluded rivers and uninhabited mountainous jungles that see little to no human contact. With claims coming from the Amazon jungles, the Rocky Mountains of the United States, secluded regions of Africa, and distant rivers of China to Siberia. According to a number of eyewitnesses, the river lizards seem to possess an extra flap of skin surrounding their neck that can be expanded outward when threatened, similar to how a peacock expands its feathers. A number of cryptozoological researchers have also made a connection between the sightings of the river lizards and another creature known as the mountain boomers cryptid of the Rocky Mountains and southwestern Texas. According to descriptions, the mountain boomers are another species of surviving dinosaur that resides within the mountains of the United States that are claimed to sleep inside caves or deep burrows and are capable of leaping great distances similar to that of a kangaroo while still possessing a design similar to that of the river lizards. There are many cryptid researchers that believe the two cryptids are one and the same, with sightings, descriptions, and locations directly matching one another. Goat-man monster. Across the states of Maryland, Louisiana, and Texas are strange witness accounts that detail the existence of a creature that locals refer to as the Goat-man. Interestingly enough, it appears that many of the claims surrounding the Goat-man hold consistent descriptions, with those that have personally encountered the strange monstrous creature claiming that he stands at roughly 7 feet tall and appears to be half man and half goat, fitting the description similar to that of the ancient goat. Man Greek Minotaur. Though many residents local to the regions of the Goat-man sightings have often remarked that the creature is more analogous to myth rather than a genuine cryptid, there are others that claim that they were attacked by the creature itself. According to the urban legends coming out of the state of Maryland surrounding the creature, residents claim that the Goat-man first originated from the testing labs of the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. The story goes that a scientist was spending his time working with goats and furthering his genetic research before a terrible accident had occurred and turned him into a massive goat man. He would go on to wander the mountains and hills, living as a hermit in shame of his new body. Though the origin story of the Goat Man might sound like something from a childhood bedtime story, it is still the legend floating throughout the region and the main warning given to those wandering throughout the area late at night. Partridge Creek Beast. Often seen roaming throughout the area surrounding Partridge Creek, located in the Yukon Territory of Canada, there appears to be a number of sightings that detail the existence of a possible surviving Ceratosaurus dinosaur. First spotted back in 1903, two friends, James Lewis Butler and Tom Lamore, were hunting near Clear Creek when they claimed that both smaller animals and large moose were seen suddenly in rapid movement leaving the region that had been their hunting grounds. When they investigated the possible cause of the disturbance, they found evidence of large imprints in the ground that were more than 5 feet long and 2.5 feet wide, with an imprint that looked similar to a massive tail having been dragged behind. Following the trail, the two hunters came to a deep rocky gorge and were too terrified to enter. After a period of time, they later met up with 2 other individuals and 5 unnamed Indian tribesmen and mounted a hunting expedition to locate the monstrous animal. After several hours, the team of 9 men located the creature near a temporary campsite they had made during the expedition and claimed to have gotten a good look at it for 10 minutes. They described the creature as being an all-black, bipedal dinosaur-like beast that was more than 50 feet in length. The creature would be sighted once again a few years later in 1907, when one of the members of the original hunting expedition would revisit the area back on the 24th of December in 1907. Pierre Lavagnou claimed that when he revisited the region and tracked the creature once again, he had found it with a fully grown deceased caribou in its mouth. After spending some time studying the creature, he believed that the monster was a surviving member of the Ceratosaurus species. Many have claimed, however, that such a species would be unable to survive in the cold climate of the region unless it was a warm-blooded species. This has raised questions over whether or not dinosaurs were warm-blooded or cold-blooded, and that if such a fossil could be found, it could prove once and for all whether or not dinosaurs were cold-blooded or warm-blooded. The worm of Linton, the Linton worm, is a mythical beast that derives from Scottish culture in the 12th century. The story of this worm has fascinated many for centuries. It has been described as a giant worm-like beast, somewhere between 10 and 12 feet in length and wider than an ordinary man's leg. The worm was said to live in 2 places. The first was in the small boggy of Linton Hill, a spot now aptly known as the Worm's Denver. It was said that the Linton worm would crawl from its lair and roam up to 2 miles from its den around the countryside, leaving a trail of demolition. The worm fed on cows, sheep, pigs, vegetables, and even people. The people of Linton were unsurprisingly terrified and locked themselves inside their homes, and farmers abandoned their farms. Were seen as futile. People were afraid to get close enough to the creature to fight it, and darts and arrows only inflicted minor wounds. News of the creature reached William de Somerville, who was intrigued by this worm that had caused so much terror. He traveled up to Linton to see the creature for himself. He waited at dawn outside the worm's den, and when the worm slithered out and spotted him, it reared up and froze. That the worm was not showing any outward aggression towards him, and after several days of observations, he acknowledged that whenever the worm came across a human, it did not attack. It would just stare at the human with its jaws hanging wide. He began to think of a weapon that would kill the creature and came up with the idea of a lance nearly twice as long as was usual, wrapped in iron. As soon as the weapon was constructed, Somerville modified it by placing a small thin iron wheel fitted several inches from the tip of the lance. To this wheel he attached several peats, which had been dipped in brimstone. Once again returning to the worm's den, Somerville instructed his servant to set alight these peats and then charged towards the worm and plunged the spear down its throat. The worm died, writhing and screaming in pain. In fact, the creature's screams were said to be so loud they were responsible for causing the curious topography of the hills in the region. The carcass of the worm was put on display to the joyful population of Linton. The reigning monarch, King William the Lion, thanked Somerville by knighting him and making him Royal Falcon and First Baron of Linton. The people were so grateful to Somerville that they constructed a sculpture in his honor. The Somerville stone of a knight on horseback defeating a beast is one of the earliest Norman carvings to survive in Scotland. The planet has many incredible locations, but some of these places are not safe. Being home to steep ledges, cliffs are uneven terrain, and paths that sometimes fade into nothing, causing untrained individuals to easily become lost. Over 250,000 individuals are reported missing every year, with estimates of actual missing person cases that are left unreported, pushing that total number to over 300,000. With that many reports, it's no wonder that a vast majority of these cases are left unsolved. However, every now and then we're left with things like photographs that leave us with more questions than answers. One mysterious story is that of an 18-year-old hiker who set out to climb the Haiku Stairs, one of Hawaii's most hazardous trails. Dylan Makpua vanished on the 27th of February. According to family members, he told them that he planned to hike the Haiku Stairs, more commonly known in the region as the Stairway to Heaven. Before doing this, it's reported that he saw his grandmother. After talking with her for a while, he told her that he wanted to climb the Stairway to Heaven, to which she told him he couldn't as it was closed. She said the following, "I told my grandson that it's closed. They're not letting anybody climb that mountain. It was on the news and I told him that." She continued with the following, "All he said was he was going hiking. I didn't think he was going there, being that I already told him that place was closed. Since then he hasn't been seen, and his whereabouts is a complete mystery." According to the local fire department, Poole posted photos on his social media showing that he was close to the trail. This was the last time that anyone would hear from him. Since then, the local fire department, the U.S. Navy locals, and drone operators have helped with the search, but none of them were able to find anything. Worryingly, not long after going missing, 2 hikers came forward and said they heard cries for help, and this caused officials to extend the search, hoping that the cries for help proved the poor was still alive. Nothing was found, though. Searches were soon stopped shortly after this, but locals and family members still went up to the trail in the hopes of finding him. Chillingly, a local hiker posted on Reddit and said that they heard someone shout. "A lot of people have their information mixed up. I could never explain to you the feeling I felt when you hear a cry like that." The hiker did not trespass and got up the stairs. By the looks of the photographs, he didn't even make it to the stairs. The hiker went up a different route. I'm not a local, so I don't really know any of the names of the ridges. All I can do is try my best to explain to others where we went, and where it was that we heard him. We started the hike on a trail around 20 feet from the trail. We'd hiked around 3 hours up. We were yelling to each other to make sure the others were okay because we were so far apart. The wind had slowed down for just half a second, and we heard a scream. "Help me." It shook me up so bad that I had to sit down to even call 911. My friends were around 50 yards in front of me, and little did I know they were also calling 911. All 5 of us heard it at the same time. If we were going straight at the trail, the voice was coming from the left. It was coming from down below. It did not seem as if it was echoing, nor did it seem very far. The scary thing is that after around an hour, once the rescuers were there, my friend and I were bound and determined to get to the top of the stairs, so we decided to carry on, and the other 3 stayed where they were. As we carried on at the ridge, we could hear the firemen and rescuers down below whistling and calling for him. Again, the wind slowed down just a tad, and we heard someone shout, "I'm down here." My friend and I both stopped in our tracks and started screaming for him. It was not the rescuers. The voice was different from the calls from the rescuers. I immediately called 911 again. We stayed up there for around an hour without moving and tried to listen for him. The wind was so bad and the clouds were starting to roll in, so we got to the point where we couldn't hear anything. My friend and I that heard the last cry are heading up the ridge tomorrow the same way that we went Monday. It's hard to explain where the location was that we heard it, as well as where the voice was coming from." End quote. One of the locals, Mr. Bowen, said the following, "I know what it's like to be in hairy situations. We've had a couple guys go up the saddle with plenty of rope and climbing gear. The rest of us went down and scoured all the different areas, including the waterfall. Another volunteer, Mr. Tyson, had this to say, "I'm a hiker. I'm going in the woods all the time anyway. Might as well try to find him. If it was a relative of mine, I'd want all the help I could get." The stairway to heaven is notorious throughout the area as being a hazardous trail. Locals have said that powerful storms have hit the area and damaged the trail. Due to people getting stuck and going missing, locals have asked officials to shut the stairs to the public, while avid hikers have argued that they should just be repaired, so that people can start to enjoy them again. Officials have said the poor likely passed away somewhere close to the trail. The ability for people to completely disappear into thin air continues to be a haunting reality. The unpredictability of the wilderness has caused mass uncertainty in these untraceable vanishings. What do you think happened to Pua? Scientists have made countless discoveries. We photographed a black hole, flown a helicopter on Mars, launched fresh rockets into space, put humans on another celestial body, and have mapped out faraway star systems that could be host to other life. Yet the majority of our oceans remain a mystery. More than 80% of our oceans remain unexplored. Scientists have said we currently know more about what's going on the surface of the moon than what's happening within our very own oceans. Dr. Gene Cole Feldman, an oceanographer at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, said the following: "In some ways, it's a lot easier to send people into space than it is to send people to the bottom of the ocean. The intense pressures in the deep ocean make it an extremely difficult environment to explore. Although this is the case, various discoveries have baffled researchers, showing us how little we really know about our oceans." One interesting report came from the Navy. Most naval ships are able to withstand the worst forms of sea warfare and storms that nature can throw at them, and the Knox-class U.S. Navy destroyer was likely more prepared than most. It turned out, though, there were no match for a monstrous sea monster that attacked it during a special operations mission that took place in the Pacific Ocean in 1978. As the USS Steen cruised the waters close to Ecuador, it was attacked by an unseen monster from below. It caused several technical issues in the failure of the sonar system, vital for navigation of enemy waters, requiring the destroyer to return to port in California, where it was removed from the waters for repairs. And what they found shocked them. There was incredible and extensive damage to the hull of the ship, including deep cuts in the rubber coating that protected the ship. Over 80% of the supposedly indestructible coating was damaged with cuts, gashes, dents, and scrims. Inside the largest of these gashes, the repair team found huge curving hooks. These were embedded in the hull. These hooks were strikingly familiar in that they greatly resembled the hooks found in suction cups of large squid, except that the only problem was that these were over 5 times as large as any known squid species. Analysis of the gashes and the hooks found the creature who attacked the ship was likely a giant squid. They said this squid would have been almost 46 meters long. This is over 3 times as large as the current record-holding species of squid, which can grow up to 14 meters. Those who have searched for this potentially undiscovered species have dubbed it the USS Steam Monster, and have said this monster squid could have done much more damage to this ship if it was given the chance. As unbelievable as it may seem that a monster squid capable of such destruction can lurk beneath the waves, it's a widely acknowledged fact that our knowledge of our ocean is ingrained, and with scientists discovering thousands of new species every year, there's every chance that monstrous squids exist within their depths. The only way to solve this mystery would be to discover one day whatever it was that caused such damage to the ship. Giant squids reside in the twilight zone of the ocean, between 1,000 and 2,000 feet down. The information we know of these majestic animals has been sourced largely from squids that have passed away and washed up onto shores or caught in the nets of fishermen. Even researchers, though, have been open to the idea of much larger squids existing in the depths of the oceans. Mystery is that of the whale shark. Scientists have said that one of the greatest mysteries of the ocean is that of the whale shark, how this shark mates and where they give birth. Although the whale shark is the largest fish in the ocean, it's arguably one of the most gentle. This giant can reach lengths of over 40 feet, and their white spots make them one of the easiest to recognize. Marine biologists have said that females give birth to live young, but as of right now, this has never been observed. This is even more surprising when you bear in mind that whale sharks spend the majority of their time at the surface of the ocean. Jonathan R. Green, the director of the Galapagos Whale Shark Project, said the following: "Here is the biggest fish in the oceans. It's almost certainly the biggest shark. And what is known about their reproductive behavior is almost nothing." Scientists have said that the whale shark hasn't changed that much in the 17 million years it's been roaming our oceans, and go on to notes that it would have been around while the Tyrannosaurus rex was alive. It shows researchers how well adapted this creature is to the ocean. Although these sharks are slow-moving and quite easy to observe, discoveries are still being made about them every year. For example, scientists in Japan announced they carried out studies on the whale shark, and it showed them that they have retractable eyes. Going on to say that the ice surface is actually covered in thousands of sharp two-fly structures, Jonathan Green said the following: "There are a few things today on our planets that you can say that is absolutely new to science. We didn't know that before. So it's like the discovery of gravity. It's an exciting field to work in, but it can be frustrating." End quote. Green and his team decided to carry out tests on the whale sharks that gathered around the Galapagos Islands, saying that the majority of them were females, and that they also appeared to be pregnant. By scanning the sharks, they hoped they could find out which ones were pregnant. The scans didn't reveal anything, so the team decided to tag the sharks in order to study their behavior, something that only caused more confusion. They said that the whale sharks were seen spiraling down to 2,000 meters, something that hadn't been seen before. The team were baffled, as they said that whale sharks didn't need to do this. They don't have any predators, and the majority of their prey is just below the surface of the water. Jonathan Green said the following: "So it's layer upon layer of mystery that we're trying to get through. And every time we come up with some kind of significant data, it just begs a whole new series of new questions." End quote. One sad fact, though, is that these creatures are caught for their fins, with marine researchers saying that a single whale shark fin can fetch up to 16,000 pounds. It's been estimated that over 100 million sharks are being caught every year, with marine conservationists saying that it's having a massive effect on our ecosystem. Asian consumers are to blame for this. And although many have stopped eating sharks, researchers have said that there's still many people that eat things like shark fin soup. Unsustainable fishing has also left a number of shark species on the brink of extinction. World Wildlife Fund's Global Shark Program leader Andy Cornish said the following about sharks being depleted: "What happens is, if you remove those large predators, it destabilizes the ecosystems underneath. When you remove sharks, strange things happen. Some populations of fish underneath increase, but other populations further down actually decrease in a way that's actually very difficult to predict. The best thing we can do is conserve our oceans. We need to have those sharks as part of our ecosystems." End quote. Another mystery is that of the glowing rock. On the 22nd of February 2021, Montana Pibble made a mysterious discovery while she was walking along a beach in Thailand. She saw a glowing rock and decided to take it home, thinking that it could have been something of value such as a meteorite or even a fossil. She took the red-colored rock home. However, when she got there, she noticed that it had changed color. The original red color had faded. She now said it was more purple. Wanting to get to the bottom of the mystery, she decided to ask her friends. However, they were unable to give any suggestions for what the rock might have been. She then looked online, but once again she wasn't able to identify it. As of right now, she said she's keeping it safe, and hopes that one day an expert will be able to take a look at it and give her a definitive answer for what it is. So what do you make of these mysterious stories? Over the past few decades, national parks have become infamous for missing people, cold cases, and unsolved mysteries. The things uncovered at national parks, as well as the things lost at national parks, have made them a mystic thing of horrors for some, and are considered a hotbed for the supernatural, the paranormal, and unexplainable. What dwells within these forests, these creeks and mountains? No one can truly be sure. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 chilling missing persons cases that occurred at national parks. Missing man Jason Hartwell found at Zion National Park's Angel's Landing. Though many missing cases unfortunately are destined to remain unsolved, this is not always the case. Jason Hartwell was a 43-year-old man from Draper, Utah, who decided to visit Angel's Landing. Angel's Landing is an extraordinarily beautiful sight and proof of how glorious the Earth's natural formations can be. However, alongside being a famous landmark to visit, it is exceedingly dangerous. His body was found on Friday, February 19, 2021, at the bottom of the summit. The day before he was discovered, the park's rescue teams had begun searching for him after there were reports from other park guests claiming they had witnessed a man falling down the landing. The Zion National Park issued this official statement about the horrific happening. According to the high-elevation fall, normal park operations have resumed at Angel's Landing. The sheriff's office from Washington County were the ones who led the investigation of Hartwell. It is not uncommon for bodies to be found at the bottom of Angel's Landing. Unfortunate as it is, the location is not safe and accidents often occur, resulting in the tragic loss of lives. In November of 2019, a young hiker who was only a teenager at the time of her disappearance was found the exact same way that Jason Hartwell was, having fallen down the summit. The teenager in question had been reported as missing by the authorities, and when her body was found, the police released a statement confirming the age, gender, and DNA matched their missing teen from Maine. Zion National Park describes the Trail of Angel's Landing as a strenuous trail that stretches for 5.4 miles. The trail is terribly steep and falling is far too easy to do. The fall down Angel's Landing is a shocking 1,488-foot drop. Hikers, especially inexperienced ones, often underestimate the danger of narrow trails and tall drops. Angel's Landing is one of many such natural landmarks that, though beautiful, can be lethal to visit. In January 2021, a man by the name of Corbin McMillan also perished. Though his body was found at the bottom of Moonlight Buttress, which, though a different landing, is a rim trail close to Angel's Landing. Since 2004, there have been 11 tragic fatalities on Angel's Landing. Adam Clayton Lyle Jones missing at the Grand Canyon. Disappearances of people in national parks have gained notoriety ever since the Missing 411 was published. If there is one certainty, it is that at least one person a year will go mysteriously missing at any of the 419 national parks and monuments in America, although the actual annual number is estimated to be up to 1,000 missing people. There is a plethora of things that can go wrong when visiting the vast wilderness. The cruelty of nature is no joke, and many people find themselves on the losing side of a battle against survival. Many cases can merely be speculated on, and although some of these cases do eventually get solved, there's many that will remain a mystery. Though the IBS or Investigative Services branch of the law enforcement generally try to solve cases as efficiently and quickly as possible, this sadly is not always the case, and most often than not cases tend to grow cold for months or years afterwards. These cases are not closed and remain open and may become active should new evidence surface. Kathy Cupper, one of the spokespeople for the IBS, has stated, "It's always there on the table. Sometimes a tip will come in, someone will hear something, and it will go active again." Adam Clayton Lyle Jones is one of the unfortunate missing victims whose case has grown cold. Jones went missing on the 31st of March back in 2011 and has not been found. The man, who was only 23 at the time of his disappearance and would now be 33 years old, was last said to have been last seen by his family in the Gulf Breeze in Florida. His family claim he left home early in the afternoon in a blue Oldsmobile Delta 88, and that the only personal possession he took with him was his laptop, no other notable belongings. Little did Jones' family realize that would be the last time they would ever get to see him again. It took until the 5th of May 2011 for a park ranger to acknowledge the abandoned Delta 88 vehicle parked at the South Rim Center of the Grand Canyon National Park. At the time, Jones had not yet been reported as a missing person, therefore not initially considered as a victim. Park rangers managed to contact Jones's parents about the abandoned car, who then proceeded to file the missing persons report to the police. Contents found within the car included an itinerary of various routes of California cities and places in Denver, Colorado. Surprisingly, there was not a mobile phone in the car, as Jones did not have his phone on him when he went missing. To this day, investigators have no idea whether he was lost or injured in the wilderness, or if something else, far more morbid, might have happened. Furthermore, there is no actual evidence that he even entered the Grand Canyon Park. No photographic or witness proof that he was there apart from the car that was found in the car park. With so little to go off, investigators have had a difficult time finding any clues to Adam Jones' whereabouts. Peter Jackson missing at Yosemite National Park in 2016. An elderly man in his late 70s was reported as missing at the Yosemite National Park in California. Jackson was reported as missing in September, but his body was only found in May of the following year. His car was left at the White Wolf campground. It is speculated that Peter Jackson was following the mist trail in Yosemite Valley when he went missing. Jackson sent his son a text message on the 17th of September confirming his location, saying he was nearly at the national park. Peter Jackson, despite his advanced age, was said to have been in idyllic shape and health. Jackson was by no means an inexperienced hiker and, according to his son, would go for serious hikes averaging to up to 5 miles each on a regular basis, which just goes to show that anything can occur in the wilderness. And even the most seasoned of adventurers and hikers can find themselves as victims of a cruel fate. Investigators and those involved with the search for Jackson claim that he most likely left the White Wolf campsite for a simple hike when he disappeared, but due to unfortunate circumstances he ended up becoming lost in the wild. His camping fees were paid all the way through to the 21st of September, implying that his stay at Yosemite National Park was supposed to be a prolonged one. According to some experienced hikers who commented on the case on Reddit, the White Wolf campsite lies on top of the Tuolumne River close to an incredibly broad canyon, with a single way down to the floor of the valley. You can easily end up falling from the side and become trapped midway down, and getting out alone would be a near impossible task to accomplish. The camping site of White Wolf is what hikers generally refer to as these are for hikers who wish to be left to their own devices. Many hikers claim that this area is not a place to go by yourself. Experienced hikers such as Jackson himself ought to have known this, and so the reason why he chose to go there alone is unknown. Online speculators believe that Peter Jackson might have fallen into the crevice and twisted or broken his ankle and was unable to call for help due to either losing or breaking his cell phone or having no signal. Yelling would also be ineffective, as national parks are vast and you are alone with nature. Unfortunately, his case was put on hold during those crucial days when he could have been found alive due to a lack of clues and bad weather. Whether or not we will be able to find these missing individuals or their bodies is unknown. Most missing persons cases turn cold and provide nothing fruitful for months or even years. Nature is uncontrollable, and all too often we forget that it can easily overwhelm us. One wrong turn in the woods can get us lost for months. One wrong step on the cliff can be our last. National parks are wonderful places to visit, though extreme caution must always be taken. We can only hope that the lost people will be found either way, so that their families may have closure at last. But what do you make of these chilling stories? One of the most interesting early human societies to have ever thrived across the long-forgotten past is that of the ancient Egyptian Empire and their centuries-long succeeding dynasties. Often regarded as the cradle of civilization, being one of the oldest cultures in the world and having been responsible for the development of civilization in the modern day, the ancient Egyptian Empire is still widely regarded as a mystery to humanity in the modern day. It seems that nearly every year there are groundbreaking discoveries that help to uncover hidden truths of the millennia-old society. So today, we will be going over 3 of the most incredible ancient Egyptian discoveries made over the past few years and their impact on the field of Egyptology in their entirety. Ancient Christian ruins discovered in Egyptian desert, the monastic life. As many researchers have often remarked, humanity appears to suffer from historical amnesia that has hidden away our past and obscured what the nature of ancient life would have been for early human civilizations. The collapse of ancient cultures, unrelenting and unforgiving all-out wars, and devastating natural disasters have led to the tragic destruction of the ancient civilization, of the written history of our collective ancestors over the countless centuries past. It is only through the determined work of archaeological research that discoveries are made in the modern day that have allowed us to catch a glimpse of history through the window of time. And just these past few months, several new discoveries in archaeological research have widened our insight into the lives of the religions of the ancient world. Additionally, it has been only recently that a new religious discovery made in the Egyptian desert has created a significant impact in our understanding of long-forgotten cultures. It was in early March of this year, in 2021, that a collaborative archaeological team between French and Norwegian researchers unearthed a buried complex of rooms and multi-layered buildings that were completely entombed in the endless sands of the western Egyptian desert. The discovery came as a complete surprise, as the unearthed structure was originally believed to have been a collection of rooms used as ordinary living quarters for a small collection of people that were residing deeper in the western desert. It was not until the researchers noticed that there were carved inscriptions on the inside of the building's walls that a new theory began to emerge surrounding the primary purpose as to the site's construction. Referred to as the site of Talganab Khazar Alaguz, the collection of buried stone houses is believed to be an ancient monastery that dates back as far as the early 6th century AD. This changes the religious timelines on the head of the ancient Egyptian civilization, as the researchers were puzzled to find that many of the inscriptions were in varying languages supporting a wide variety of different popular religions around the world. According to the archaeological French-Norwegian team, unearthed site housed a collection of complicated structures that had to have been constructed over several decades in the very least. Though many of the structures were made from mud bricks that had been molded together and baked using primitive construction methods, some of the more important buildings appeared to have been carved directly into massive slabs of bedrock that lined the foundation of the unearthed site. The head of the Islamic, Coptic, and Jewish antiquities, one of the key researchers in assessing the validity of the archaeological team's findings, was originally quoted as describing the site as being composed of, quote, 6 sectors containing the ruins of 3 churches and monk cells, with walls that bear graffiti and symbols with Coptic connotations. At another time, the head of the archaeological mission itself, a man by the name of Victor, and explained that the team had uncovered a total of 19 structures, with one of the largest structures appearing to have been a church carved from a single slab of bedrock. Within the carved church, found across several inner walls, were countless inscriptions of religious symbolism that were made in a variety of languages and depicted a wide variety of religions. Although originally to have only possessed Coptic inscriptions and religious symbolism, the researchers found carvings of biblical passages and Greek lettering found all throughout the area, pointing towards a monastic collaboration between the more popular religions at the time, such as the emerging Christian religions, New Female Mummy, Thuja. Back in 2018, the archaeological and Egyptological community saw a gold rush of breathtaking ancient Egyptian discoveries surrounding the entire region El Asasif, which proved to be a tremendous boom to the area's local economy at the height of their tourism decline. A hive of unearthed, buried structures, complex cities long forgotten, ancient traditions, and religious artifacts of incredible value, available for anyone to see, became the archaeological centerpiece of El Asasif between 2016 to 2018. However, it was not until the end of 2018 that archaeologists made a groundbreaking discovery that confirmed a long-held theory surrounding the ancient Egyptian officer known as Hori. According to archaeological researchers and leading Egyptologists, situated alongside the western bank of the Nile River, opposite to the upper dynastic southern ancient Egyptian city of Luxor, there resides a long-forgotten Theban necropolis that had been buried within the deep sands of the Egyptian desert for several thousand years. Located in El Asasif, the Theban necropolis has been at the center of decades-long investigations surrounding what are believed to have been tombs of officers of the state that date back more than 3,000 years into the past. One of the recently discovered regions of the Theban necropolis, an enclosed area known only as the TT-28 tomb, was believed to have been the personal tomb of one of the highest officers of the state more than 3,000 years ago, known only by the name Hori. Although not much is known about the ancient Egyptian officer, He was believed to have been the owner of the estate of Ammonius during the Ramesside period back in the 16th century BC and to have been tasked with the duties of an ancient Egyptian official, handling taxes, planning, and political jobs such as advising the pharaoh, overseeing religious ceremonies, and preparing bodies for the afterlife. It was back in November of 2018 that archaeologists uncovered 2 unopened sarcophagi within the TT-28 tomb and opened them up to the public for a special event to help revive local tourism. The first sarcophagus, a richly styled coffin that was believed to have been dated all the way back to the 17th dynasty, was confirmed by Egyptologists to have housed an ancient Egyptian priest of such tremendous stature that it is understood that the man had been the lead embalming doctor for ancient Egyptian pharaohs, personally responsible for handling the bodies of kings and viziers throughout his life. The second sarcophagus, which was provided with its own special opening ceremony, revealed the mummified remains of a female resident believed to have been dated all the way back to the 18th century dynasties, sometime around the time of the pharaohs Tutankhamun and Ramses II. Next to nothing is known about the female mummy, though speculations have arisen since the opening of the casket surrounding her possible role in the estate and the reason for her embalming. Given the fact that the Theban necropolis is closely tied to religious ceremonies and offices of the state, it is theorized that the female mummy, now referred to as Thuja, was a high priestess who oversaw many of the religious traditions of the region and played a significant role in the embalming processes. The TT-28 tomb discovery was not limited to the unearthing of 2 sarcophagi, however, and soon researchers uncovered a wide variety of artifacts that are still under study to this very day. Their finds included restored walls covered in high-quality paintings, a papyrus scroll not yet made available to the public, 2 wooden statues, 5 masks decorated with a variety of colors and paints, and over 1,000 clay faience and wood Oshabti funerary figurines. Given the extent of the discovery, it will most likely be years before all of the artifacts can be studied, catalogued, and made available for museums to showcase to the general public. Funerary temple of ancient Queen Nyet discovered. Earlier this year, on the 14th of January 2021, the Egyptian government unveiled what is believed to be the funerary temple of the ancient Egyptian Queen Nyet. According to Egyptian archaeological researchers, Queen Nyet was the long-known queen of the 6th dynastic Egyptian king Teti. The find has been regarded by Egyptologists as one of the greatest discoveries surrounding the ancient Egyptian civilization made in the modern world, as it helps to shine a light on the obscure facts of the 6th dynasty. Despite nearly 100 years of archaeologists having been made aware of King Teti, not much has been recovered surrounding the 6th dynastic king, obscuring many prominent facts that have made it incredibly difficult to uncover further information about the king that ruled over 4,300 years in the past. With the discovery of the tomb of Queen Nyet, however, many new key pieces of surrounding the 6th dynasty and the ruling family of the time. DNA evidence and recovered artifacts buried alongside the queen has confirmed that Queen Nyet was both the queen to the Egyptian king Teti and also his daughter. Although abhorrent in the modern day, back during the time of ancient Egyptian kingdoms, it was an incredibly common practice for the ancient pharaohs to engage in acts of marrying family members in order to keep their lineage pure, as they believed that their lineage had descended directly from the gods and so provided the ruling class with the belief that they were blessed with an innate ability to rule over others. Additional recovered artifacts would also confirm that the king would only reign for a period of 12 years, having been made the victim of an assassination involved in a harem plot to overthrow the king and replace him with a far more capable ruler. But what are your thoughts surrounding these 3 incredible discoveries that help to reveal interesting facts in the modern day? Having been in existence for at least 55 million years and as the planet's largest rainforest, the Amazon is Earth's single greatest location for biodiversity. It is still home to nearly 400 indigenous tribes that continue to live off the land and by the rules of nature. There is still so much that we do not know about the Amazon rainforest and so many species that we have yet to discover. The forest is so dense and so massive that new technologies have been created in order to more effectively conduct research while simultaneously preserving the area from deforestation that reveal how little we know about the people living there hundreds of years ago, and how even in 2021 there are new species of animals still being discovered in this 2.7 million square mile forest. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 incredible Amazon jungle discoveries. Archaeologists find a vast network of Amazon villages laid out like the cosmos. This jungle discovery was the result of a new archaeological project that focused on learning more about the pre-Columbian Amazon. Over the last 20 years, research has uncovered that the southern rim of the rainforest was home to a culture of soil sculptors that were able to engineer entire landscapes around their villages long before the Europeans arrived with such knowledge. It is only in the last 10 years that scientists have been able to find remnants of these complex designs, called mound villages, which are shaped as rectangles or circles and connected by intricate networks of roads. While these mound villages have been found and documented in other parts of the country, archaeologists had never sought them out in the Brazilian state of Acre. This prompted an international group of researchers to join forces and perform a complete survey of the area using LiDAR technology. Before this technology, researchers would have needed to rely on deforestation or hacking their way through the rainforest to reveal any ancient secrets. But with LiDAR, billions of pulse lasers are shot toward a designated section of land from a helicopter only to bounce back toward the sensor, providing the precise measurements needed to recreate 3D maps and models of the area. The resulting data from their flight over Acre revealed 36 of these mound villages, 25 circular and 11 rectangular, dating from the 1300s to the 1700s. The circular villages each had similar layouts featuring elongated mounds circling the plaza at the center of the city, making them resemble the face of a clock. From above, the mounds circling the villages looked like the rays of the sun. Each village was about 3 miles apart but connected to one another, creating a vast network through the rainforest. Archaeologists speculate that these cultures may have been inspired by the stars when they created their communities. The village networks are designed in such a consistent and distinctive way that researchers believe they were arranged in a pattern that reflects the Native Americans' understanding of the cosmos. Mysterious geoglyphs reveal Amazon was densely populated. Once thought to be an untouched paradise, the pre-Columbian Amazon may have actually been home to millions of people. Until recently, it was assumed that the Amazon was a pristine paradise with only a few groups of nomadic people living around the Amazon River to sustain themselves. New research in the Brazilian state of Mato Grosso suggests a new story entirely. As it turns out, the rainforest could have actually been home to millions living in large, interconnected villages. With much of the region covered in dense forest, the area has always been challenging to navigate for any archaeologist interested in finding out more about how Amazonians lived away from the river and its resources. Using satellite imagery, teams were able to identify geoglyphs, which are ancient geometric ground drawings made by humans out of the earth, stone, and low-relief mounds, presumably part of a ritual for the gods, especially in times of drought. Once they had the geoglyphs, the team went into the field to the precise locations to see if they could actually find any remnants of ancient civilizations there. They were overjoyed when all 24 areas they visited contained some form of proof that people had lived there. In one site, they found old ceramics, estimated to be from 1410 AD. After returning to their labs, they then used their findings to predict the locations of other possible sites, which revealed there are likely 1,300 villages and geoglyphs in the 154,000 square mile area of southern Amazonia, 2/3 of which have yet to be found. The research team now believes that between 500,000 and 1 million people once lived in a mere 7% of the Amazon basin. Prior to this research, it was estimated that the entire basin had only ever been home to 2 million people. The possibility of there being even more sites suggests that these interconnected villages spanned over 1,100 miles during their peak years between 1200 and 1500 AD. It appears that there are more discoveries to be found in the Amazon. New species of pumpkin toadlet poisonous frog discovered in Brazil. The Amazon is a place of endless discovery, so much so that new species are still being found. A new species of pumpkin toadlet named for the famous Halloween squash has recently been discovered in Brazil's Atlantic forest. Only the size of a thumbnail, this fluorescent orange toadlet is highly toxic. It secretes a poison called tetrodotoxin, which is the same lethal toxin found in pufferfish, also known as fugu. Luckily for the researchers who discovered the species, they are not a significant threat to humans as long as you are careful not to touch your eyes or mouth after handling them. What makes this little toadlet so unique is that the bony plates on its back and skull are fluorescent and glow through their skin when exposed to UV light. This was a mysterious and rare sight as only 2 other pumpkin toadlet species share this trait. Scientists still do not understand its purpose, but think it might play a role in their communication. Finding this little toadlet was not easy. Brazil has the most amphibian species, with over 1,000 species found in the rainforest alone. Research leader Ivan Sergio Nunes Silva of São Paulo State University was determined to find new pumpkin toadlets with his team, as identifying new creatures is the best way to preserve Brazil's biodiversity and to protect the species from extinction. Nunes and his team found the toadlet during their 76 field surveys. They spent countless hours roaming the forest streams between 2018 and 2019. Even after the discovery, the team had to be sure this was a new species, so they took several DNA samples from the new toad and compared them to samples of every known toadlet to date. They also analyzed its behavior, bone structure, physical features, and recorded its mating call to compare every possible data point against their existing data. They found that the new toad was smaller than others in the species, had unusual faded black markings likely due to elevation, and could not hear its own calls because of its underdeveloped ears. Nunes and his team hope that the discovery of new species will inspire organizations and governments to make a more significant effort in preserving the rainforest and reducing the constant threat of deforestation. Hopefully, as research continues, we will be able to get a better understanding of their story. In addition, it is still surprising to think that there are still so many undiscovered animal species on our planet. Who knows what other kinds of creatures we will find as new technologies are being created every day. But what do you make of these jungle discoveries? Everybody loves to discover things, whether it is a long-lost family member or friend, an artifact or object that seemed to have vanished long ago, or perhaps even something inside themselves. Discoveries give people a sense of closure, or in some cases open up further mystery. All over the world, things are lost and found, but the most exciting discoveries are of things that are never known to have existed. These things seem to crop up in the most unlikely and unbeknownst to us, are much more important than we may think. So today we'll be taking a look at these 3 interesting discoveries. Rabbits burrowing on a remote Welsh island uncover a Stone Age treasure trove. Much of what we know about our past, from dinosaurs to Neanderthals, would not have been possible without the skills and expertise of archaeologists. They carry out an immensely complicated and time-consuming job, which often goes resultless for months on end. However, as we are about to explain, such spells of archaeological drought can be ended by the most unexpected of discoveries. In March 2021, a nest of rabbits lent a helping hand to a group of archaeologists scouring the desolate island of Scotchholm, a stone's throw away from the southwest coast of Wales. The curious colony of bunnies managed to unearth 2 artifacts of intrigue. Since 2014, the island's sole inhabitants were 2 wardens by the name of Giselle Eagle and Richard Brown, who were hired by a wildlife trust. During early March, they chanced upon a smooth oblong stone by the outskirts of their cottage lying in a rabbit hole. Something about it aroused their suspicions, prompting them to take pictures of the object to send to researchers. They did suspect it was man-made. The pair's hunch was deemed correct, and what they had stumbled across was quite something to behold. After carrying out a much more in-depth investigation, researchers confirmed that this seemingly innocent stone was actually a tool from the late Mesolithic era, approximately 6,000 to 9,000 years old. The tool, also known as a beveled pebble, was used by hunter-gatherers for an array of tasks, such as processing seafood and skinning seals, so that their skin could be used to line their boats. That same rabbit hole played host to another discovery of artifacts in the form of sizable fragments of clay. A curator of prehistoric archaeology at the National Museum of Wales, recognized the clay fragments and confirmed that they were part of a cremation urn dating back to the early Bronze Age from around 2000 to 1750 BC. The cluster of archaeological gems centered around one rabbit hole suggests that this was originally the site of an early bronze burial mound which happened to be built over the top of a Stone Age hunter-gatherer site before being overrun by the inquisitive rabbits. This recent discovery has proven quite exciting for archaeologists, given its location. Historically, Scottcombe was mainly known for its vibrant seabird life, with tens of thousands of seabirds, such as puffins, ducks, and Manx shearwaters calling the island home. Interestingly, about 50% of the world's Manx shearwaters reside there. So naturally, the island was never known for its archaeological treasures, until the recent revelations. Academics now hope that the island will continue to serve up more prehistoric treats, with expeditions to Scottcombe being planned to take place as soon as possible. Egyptian tomb in Sudan's Sai Island. Ancient Egypt was a technologically advanced civilization in its day. It was at the forefront of science, mathematics, and literature. It was a civilization that prevailed for 3,000 years before succumbing to the might of the Roman Empire, yet it still managed to hold on to its rich and vibrant culture. At one point, the Egyptian Empire had control over vast swathes of what is now modern-day and the Middle East. Naturally, countless artifacts and remnants of the civilization have been found throughout its former lands, with each discovery providing further insight into this fascinating society. In 2015, archaeologists discovered an ancient tomb with an array of chambers enough for over a dozen mummified corpses. The tomb, which is believed to be around 3,400 years old, was found on the island of Sai, situated near the famous Nile River in the arid lands of northern Sudan. Historically, Sai Island and its surrounding areas formerly known as Nubia were mining hotspots for Egyptians, and as such they sought to protect the area with extensive fortifications and settlements. The island itself contained one of these settlements along with a gold mine. The nature of the work that the Egyptians did on Sai Island led researchers to believe that the bodies in the tomb were those of the gold workers, as well as those who maintained the settlements. Aside from the bodies, the tomb also had a collection of intriguing and potentially valuable artifacts hidden in its depths. These included gold rings, golden masks that were used to cover the dead, and scarabs, which were lavish amulets that had a design inspired by beetles due to their religious significance in ancient Egyptian culture. Some of these artifacts also contained hieroglyphic inscriptions. The researchers, eager to capitalize on any clues that the markings could give to aid the understanding of this mysterious discovery, deciphered the markings and found that the tomb was erected for a master gold worker by the name of Chemos. Researchers hypothesized that the other bodies in the tomb are likely to be his relatives. However, DNA sampling will be required to confirm this. Archaeologists hope that upon further scrutiny, the tomb and its artifacts will reveal more about the life of gold miners around the area. With that said, it will be no easy feat, according to Julia Butka, a professor of Egyptian archaeology, as the method of preservation has complicated the analysis of DNA. As of 2021, Butka and her team have uncovered something even more unexpected. They found that all the bodies in the tombs were part of the local population. Poses an interesting question. At the time, the local Nubians were ruled by the dominant Egyptians, and combined with the fact that all the features of the tomb were quintessentially Egyptian, it suggests that the dynamic between the ruled and the rulers may not have been so clear-cut as previously thought. Researchers are expected to continue unearthing mysterious revelations into the new decade. New giant tortoise species discovered on Galapagos Islands. The incredible Galapagos Islands are a unique collection of biodiverse habitats for some of the world's most beautiful wildlife. Famous explorer and biologist Charles Darwin explored the Galapagos on the second voyage of the HMS Beagle. It is believed that the observations he made during the trip in the 1830s influenced his theory of evolution. There, Darwin was reportedly enthralled by the potential presence of volcanoes and also the appearance of the mockingbird. Darwin was not the first nor the last explorer to chart the Galapagos. This incredible archipelago has played host to fascinating discoveries all the way up to the present day. One of these discoveries was made as recently as 2015, and it is definitely true to say that it was a memorable one. Are some of the most intriguing creatures to roam the Earth, weighing up to 250 kilograms and living, in many cases for over 100 years. The species gives a fascinating insight into evolution past and present. Santa Cruz Island, one of the islands of the Galapagos, was previously believed to be home to two populations but only one species of giant tortoise. However, unique DNA research has revealed that there is in fact a second species of giant tortoise on Santa Cruz. Named Selenoides don Fostoi after a retired Galapagos park ranger, the new species is the 15th to be discovered on the archipelago. An endangered species, the eastern Santa Cruz tortoise, as the new species is also known, has a population of around only 250. Researchers were immediately keen to get to work to protect this uniquely incredible species. We have covered 3 different continents, climates, and histories, from the rabbits to the tortoises with a little bit of ancient Egypt thrown in. These findings prove that there is something that unifies them. History is very much alive. But what do you make of these 3 interesting discoveries? Former CIA Director R. James Woolsey said he believes UFOs could exist. This news broke after he said that his friend's plane suddenly stopped at 40,000 feet. The mysterious event caused him to question what could have caused this, and said that he hopes the people of Earth will be friendly towards extraterrestrials if they were to visit. He was interviewed by the Black Vault where he said the following, usually involving some kind of aircraft. "I never thought there was anything to this. It always seemed pretty far out to me. But there was one case in which a friend of mine was able to have his aircraft stopped at 40,000 feet and not continue operating as a normal aircraft. What was going on? I don't know. Does anyone know? There had just been enough things like that have occurred that I think there will be a lot of examination of what's going on. This will include over several years. I'm not as skeptical as I was a few years ago, but something is going on that is surprising to a series of intelligent aircraft. I think that some of the phenomena we're going to be seeing continues to be unexplained and might in fact be some type of phenomenon that is the result of something we don't yet understand, and that could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life." When talking about the mysterious videos released by the Pentagon, he said the following. He tried to ensure that you have as much data as possible in terms of visuals and also different types of maybe technical collection of sensors. Former Director of Intelligence John Radcliffe said the following. There are a lot more sightings that have been made public. Some of those have been declassified. And when we talk about sightings, we are talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots, or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain, movements that are hard to replicate that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that exceed the sound barrier without making a sonic boom." End quote. Some people, though, didn't buy into this and said that the Central Intelligence Agency has a really terrible track record of being honest. Further commenting that for decades they twisted the truth to the general public and have carried out a variety of different experiments against humans that are considered unethical. One person said the following, "I don't like the way that these people are acting surprised about this stuff, as if this is the first time they've heard about it. They've known about these things for years, and acting like this is new information to them is insulting. We know they know about them because they have declassified documents from the 50s and 60s detailing UFO encounters with pilots and saying that they moved in ways that our planes weren't able to. They've also spent millions of dollars on misinformation." Others carried on from this and had this to say, "Why are they acting like this is new territory? The Central Intelligence Agency has been involved in this for many years now. And this is going by the information they've released through declassified networks. And that's only the stuff we know about. I'm sure that there's much more information that they haven't released." One UFO researcher said the following, "I'm not the first person to say this, but why are we not talking about the fact that our government has been researching these things for over 70 years? They've created secret projects to specifically look into this phenomenon, and have gone on to spend billions of dollars to research these crafts further. Isn't that enough evidence to tell you that something is going on here? It's tough to ignore the evidence when it's right in front of our eyes. If these things weren't real, there would be nothing to investigate. Yet time and time again, the government has shown that they're interested in these crafts. End quote. Going back earlier this year, the Central Intelligence Agency declassified decades' worth of UFO documents. This caused excitement among UFO believers, with amateur researchers saying they've been aware of these investigations for years. There's been approximately 2,700 documents that have been uploaded, most of which detail the government's involvement with UFOs. However, those who looked into these files were not impressed, with many users saying they knew this would happen. Basically, when people logged on to read these documents, in some cases all the information had been blacked out. Many comments followed a similar theme, saying what was the point in releasing these documents if you're going to cross out all the information. One document reads top secrets eyes only, but then you can't read the rest, and many of the documents follow the same theme, which makes it hard to find out what they're talking about and what they're mentioning. Again though, people said they're not going to release anything of interest, and that the majority of documents they release will be about things that aren't interesting. Although some UFO researchers were excited when these documents got released, many who've been studying the subject for some time now have said they're not surprised this happened, with one user going on to say the following: whenever they say they're going to reveal top secret documents, they never actually release anything of interest. It's all unreadable, was being censored to the point that it's just a mishmash of words. When it comes to the subject of UFOs, they're never going to reveal top secret information. It will always normally be the stuff that the general public are already aware of. End quote. A new Pentagon report is expected to be released by the 1st of June, with it going into detail about the aerial phenomena that's been featured in the news. However, again, people aren't getting their hopes up, as they've said they'll only release what they want to, and likely all of the interesting information will be left out. So what do you make of this news? Every year thousands of objects approach the sun and our planet. Although 99% of these can be explained as space debris and other man-made objects, some of them aren't so easy to explain. A recent photograph shows what looks like a giant planet close to the sun, with users putting forward possible theories for what this object is. Some who've spent time looking through Soho images have said this isn't the first time this thing has shown up, saying that whatever it is, it's huge. UFO believers think the object could be a giant unidentified flying object, while some have theorized that it's a planet, although many disagree with this and say that space agencies most definitely would have picked up on this. Most believers in the unknown have said that these objects are UFOs, and that every year hundreds of these crafts can be found close to the sun and the moon. One person said the following: "It's hard to find out what this thing is because we don't have much to go by, but there's definitely something there." In some of the live videos you can see solar winds moving around these objects, telling us that it's hitting something and then being deflected. Perhaps it's natural, but either way it's strange. Well, another person said this: although I don't believe in the majority of alleged crafts seen close to our sun. The ones that interact with solar rays are the most interesting, because they can't be explained away as things like space debris or camera anomalies. I've watched these cameras, and also they come from the International Space Station, and in my opinion the majority of these things are man-made. But this one seen close to the sun definitely isn't that. Firstly, this object is massive, and as I said, it's definitely there because it's interacting with the sun's rays. I'd be interested to hear what NASA has to say." End quote. With the public having instant access to photographs from the International Space Station and the sun, there's no shortage of these objects that some say is evidence of advanced life forms. Another object that believers say has been seen close to the sun is that of a giant craft, going on to say that whatever this thing is, we have photographs of it firing beams into the sun. Not everyone has got on board with the idea that giant UFOs are firing energy beams into their sun. But amateur researchers have said they've got photographs of this happening, and that, as of right now, NASA has failed to explain what these photographs show, with one amateur researcher saying the following: "I've been looking through the Soho images for years now, and these are some of the most interesting anomalies that you'll see. We are only describing what we see in the images, and it does look like a giant craft is firing a beam of energy into the sun. Another object that sparked the interest of believers was that of a giant UFO that had 4 arms. They have said that this object has been seen flying around the sun at different times of the year, and has said it can't be a planet because it's moving too quickly, and it can't be a piece of space debris because it's too big. One user said the following: "Isn't it interesting that NASA always replies to the photos that are easy to explain? We know that the space above our Earth is filled with debris, but they never give us an answer for some of the strange objects that have been photographed. It's like they pick and choose which ones they want to answer." End quote. Interestingly, on the SOHO website, NASA did reply to some of these claims, with them saying the following: "Most common sources of UFO claims are planets. These always look very strange in LOSCO images because they're so bright that the image blooms and the CCD pixels bleed along the readout rows. Some people try to claim that they're flying saucers based on their appearance. I've also heard the claim that they're previously unknown Saturn-like planets with rings around them. You can also see what I'm talking about on the SOHO Hotshot page. Another one is cosmic rays. High-energy particles from the solar wind and the galaxy as a whole whip around the SOHO spacecraft and interact with the detectors. These produce spots and streaks on the detector ranging from a single pixel to large streaks that span a large fraction of the image. These are most evident during a solar storm, as can be seen on the Hotshot page, but are always present at some level. I know that some people have claimed they've seen spacecraft-looking things that seem to be moving around, but which are obviously cosmic rays when examined by experienced observers. People see a cosmic ray at one location in one image, and then another random cosmic rays hits the nearby next image, and they claim that both have the same thing moving between frames. Sometimes you'll see a cosmic ray seem to persist in the web images for 2 or more frames. This is because we lose a certain % of the data coming down from the spacecraft. In LOSCO, such losses appear as square blocks in the image. The software that puts the images on the web will fill in these blocks from the last good image. And if there's a cosmic ray in that block from the previous image, it will appear in this image as well. The thing to check for is to look for the raw data files, which are also available on the web through the SOHO catalog interface. Software glitches. Occasionally we'll have some problems with the software which produce the images for the web, and strange artifacts will appear in the data. These glitches are usually corrected within a few days. In fact, we've had a couple of instances of that recently." End quote. NASA ended by saying that the space agency has never captured a UFO on camera, and has always been truthful about the objects in their photographs. As of right now, though, amateur researchers have said they don't think these photographs show space debris, or things like camera anomalies. So what do you make of these claims? Do you agree with NASA that they're just normal objects? Or do you think there's something else being photographed?